See it falling into place. It's the right time, right place. How I'm loving life these days.
The all-new Hyundai Kona. Seriously fun.
It's all about opportunity and finding what is an amazing opportunity. Switch the names around and we've got ourselves a wonderful bit of action that's coming along here. I'm Jake Sperry, that's Adam Reed. We'll get there somehow. We have got some wonderful championship action, which is coming over to you in the form of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship. This, the season opener here at Zolder, brought to you with Gaming Malta in association with Hyundai, Intercomp, Sunshine Snacks, with Level Academy and with JACAP. This sits down the start of an important season. And when you get right down to it here, Adam, it is all about finding momentum. It is all about building up a great start to your season. No more, no less.
Hi Jake, absolutely. It's going to be critical to get your season off to the best of start. Zolder is going to be a very, very tricky circuit to get right. It is so narrow, and there's so many places that can really test your limits around this circuit. So many challenging corners that make up this amazing circuit deep in the forests of Belgium. And yeah, the best thing you really want to do is just get off to a good start. They've had an hour of practice already. Now they're on to qualifying, which we'll get on to very, very soon.
We absolutely will, and that will be something worth keeping in mind, that the longer that this show goes on is who's going to qualify where and who is going to get what out of this Zolder circuit. It's a track which has had racing since 1963 around it and has relatively remained unchanged. All they've done is added a couple of chicanes out there on this track. First and foremost, in 1972, when they put the Kleiner chicane into play. It used to be a really fast run through to Jackie X, but then they changed that around in 1975, and the track has largely remained somewhat similar ever since, with the Villeneuve chicane the only last real amendment to the circuit, which came into play in 1986. But since then, it's just been a few minor tweaks here and there to build this circuit. As we take a look at the calendar, it's an 8-round series that we've got out there, which pretty much hits the highs and the lows. And one of the few things that often can't be understated here, Adam, how truly this is a World Series in terms of circuit representation.
Absolutely, we love having every single etch of the Continentals here. Of course, we do have our European stage, and then we head over to Oceania for Australia, heading back to Europe for a moment. They're in Monza before heading to South Africa for Kailami, the African continent, heading over to Asia and then across to North America in Indianapolis, and finalizing our calendar with Imola in Europe. Some amazing, amazing tracks there, Jake, and there's just so much to look forward to throughout the next or I believe it is going to be 8 weeks we have. But overall, it is just going to be one of those championships you've got to keep your beady little eyes on.
Yeah, you really do. Of course, with it being an 8-round championship, there will be chops and changes by the types of car that's being run by those who are out there trying to get what they can out of each specific circuit. There will be pluses, there will be minuses over the course of this season, but this Zolder circuit we talked about being very much all about downforce and chicanery out there. You got 3 of them to try and deal with over the course of the lap. But when you take a look around this circuit, Adam, the thing that stands out to me is how difficult it is going to be to find an overtake over the course of this circuit. There's one real bit of elevation change on this track. That's over the Butte, so to speak, corner, turn 6 out on track. So they're looking around and they're thinking, well, it's going to be generally flat. You're going to have to try and be a little bit more creative to find those moves. It's not necessarily the easiest place in the world to make overtaking happen. So track position, I think, might be the aim of the game tonight.
Yeah, I do think that it will all come down to strategy. It's not the best racing when it does come down to strategy, but the drivers, their minds will really be put at work, and so will their driving ability. You're just seeing on your kind of track guide already, it's such a difficult circuit. One foot wrong, one tire on the grass, and you will find yourselves into the concrete barrier on either side of the circuit that aligns this beautiful circuit. But you're seeing that there's so many touch and go places where you've really just got to go with the flow here. But yeah, it's going to be one that will be really difficult to try and nurture yourself into. But once you're into the rhythm, I think you've got it nice and well, and you can just continue throughout that until you get to potentially your next stint or the end of the race.
Yeah, that drive out of Jackie X, I think, is going to be rather important heading on to some of the final laps of this race, and we'll get a chance to look at that in just a few moments' time. We're going to step away for just one moment here with Velocity Esports Racing here with your ACER Malta GT3 Championship. We'll get into the thick of the action on the other side of this.
The pace. Oh, Molly! Oh, my God! Building a fight, this be hit relies on twist, and he nails them both. More from twist. Oh my God!
And so down then into qualifying, 14 minutes finding itself remaining up on the clock as things stand. So there is still going to be a little ways before we jump ourselves forward into the racing action, but those times will be important to find themselves up on the board, and hopefully we will see that in the next few moments' time. Adam, this is the sort of circuit where you just got to be patient. I think it's going to be one of those where that qualifying effort is going to be really important, but you're often dealing with that opening sector of the lap, which I think runs a little bit differently to the rest of the circuit, which has a very stop-start vibe in the sense that you've got those nice flowing corners through the observatory bend into Canal and then Lucien Bianchi.
Yeah, you do. It is a quite a flowing section. You've really just got to go with the flow, really, to feel the confidence in that car, and then you'll be able to get it out of Lucien Bianchi, and then it's going to be on towards that chicane. It's very, very easy to cut because as a racing driver, you want to be able to go and kind of straight line that piece of circuit. But when it's very, very difficult to do so, I do think that it will be a little bit of caution to the wind during those first few runs, especially during when you've got high fuel during the race, when you've got those tires still maybe cold, maybe the brakes are still cold as well. And of course, you've got the rest of that where you've got the very, very tight chicane of Gilles Villeneuve. Of course, you're probably going at about 140 miles an hour through there for slamming on the brakes, trying to slow it right down. And of course, you got through the forest section and then in towards Jackie X and that final chicane, which will be so, so crucial. I do think we'll see a couple of side-by-sides. And I just kind of wonder, Jake, if you think there'll be a bit of aggression around this circuit. Yes, we're very early on in the championship, but yeah, we'll be seeing a potential aggressive maneuvers from the other driver, because if they need to get past, they'll have to take some really interesting maneuvers to try and get through.
Well, that's going to be something worth keeping in mind. So, as those drivers look to try and put those times in on the board, I believe Adrian Manduka is currently the quickest. We have just lost our production feed here at the moment. So, you've got more eyes than what we've got at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, as things stand at this stage. But there is a nice, I would say, characteristic of cars out there at the moment, Adam, for the course of the 12 drivers that we've got here at this moment in time. We've got the four Ferraris, four McLarens out there. We've got a Bentley, a Ford, and a BMW for the 12 that we've got here today. So it certainly looks like that all these drivers, when they're putting together this championship and thinking, what do they want? There's an even spread here in terms of philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. You do have those amazing cars of the Ferraris and the McLarens. I think with the way they're kind of set up, they might go pretty well around here. We'll have to see how they kind of turn out. But it's a great turnout for the Ferraris. I do wonder how that brand new Ford will go about, because that does seem to be quite the heavy car. I've not been able to see that in real life, unfortunately. But yeah, I do think that will be a very, very difficult car to try and maybe handle around here. We've also got the Bentley out there with Sheldon Muscat, of course, a former GT3 driver from last season when we started it originally with the 5 rounds. Of course, he was a very, very good driver, and it was right up there during that course of that GT3 kind of short campaign. Of course, he will definitely be looking to try and potentially challenge on with the championship as well. I think he's definitely one of those drivers we will be seeing up in those top, up at the top ends for sure.
Yeah, we certainly will do out there at this moment in time. See some of the top drivers out there and really showing what they're capable of. Of course, you've got Sheldon Muscat in the Intercomp VMD Simsport Bentley out there at this moment in time. But likes of Ryan Carabot, Aaron De Battista, Adrian Manduka up there. Denzel Agius, currently P5 as things stand. So certainly you are getting that sense that there are certain drivers out there who are looking to try and progress through in this race, who are going to be thinking about, right, how do I build this season up from the ground upwards? At over halfway through this qualifying, you get the sense that it's 4 at the front, and then there's a pretty sizable gap back to about 5th place. So there's work to be done, Adam, by those in the middle of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be a bit needing to be done. I think setups will also be interesting because they're very complicated. On a set of course of competizione, you don't just add a bit of downforce, minimize here and there, add a few pressures. There's a bit more in terms of the camber and in terms of the front splitters. You need to try and adjust to try and make this car work and really dance around the circuit like almost like a tango. And hopefully you'll be doing that successfully used all 10s, and at the moment that driver with the majority of the numbers is Adrian Manduca up in the top of the standings with the number 93 Ferrari at 127.412 as far as we can see on our timing. But Aaron De Baptista not too far behind, just a tenth off, 1.160 to be as close more as possible. But Carabot is also in there. He's also gone with the Ferrari. So very interesting to see that the majority of these drivers have seen that calendar and thought, oh well, let's see if we can go with the Ferrari, because it just seems to be the car that seems to potentially may go round well for the majority of the circuits. But yeah, so far it's not too bad in terms of action, but yeah, we still have a lot more to offer.
Yeah, so that's going to be rather important here in terms of seeing what these drivers have. Manduca currently the quickest of the lot in the number 93 Ferrari, but we'll certainly be hoping that there is going to be a little bit more of improvement out there to jump up through. Sheldon Muscat has gone second fastest in the Bentley now and has moved to 600th off the pace, so that margin certainly is starting to clamber back down, but we are seeing those drivers taking that easy quick toe back into the pits, getting a new set of boots off and going back on once again. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but sometimes you get a few perks with sim racing, Adam.
Yeah, you do. You do have that kind of perk as well. So it will be interesting to see how that kind of turns out in this opening race. But yeah, you're just seeing all the characteristics around the track. I think that's where my eye has been noticing, and all the wonderful liveries we've been seeing around the circuit. But you're just seeing the challenges, even in the virtual world, how much it's such a challenge to be able to keep this car on the circuit. And of course, some of the curves will be there to try and throw you off. They pass their way around the back of the paddock as well. They kind of go in back and around the circuit, back and around, past the paddock, underneath the bridge, and that's where clean chicane is. But yeah, really seeing, wondering how this is going to turn out for the race, because we're just seeing kind of we're seeing a little bit of pace in terms of where these cars are. We just noticed Sheldon Muscat's gone on to the just shy of 700ths of a second there, the 94 Bentley. So I wonder if that's a car that looks pretty quick overall.
Yeah, I think that Bentley looks really good. I wouldn't have said this is a natural Bentley circuit either. I think it certainly works more out there in some of the longer circuits over the course of the season. I think that Bentley will do really well at Silverstone, for example, and Kyalami, not necessarily here at Zolder. I don't think it quite suits this track, but definitely doing a good job. De Baptista is currently really trying to throw his way through out there at this point, and if he can move up an extra position or two, he'll be definitely happy with what he's got. The second of the Agiuses then in the Ford has just gone into 6th position, so the number 52 car certainly doing all of what is needed to, and then some, to really try and find a challenge out there. But there isn't really a massive drop between drivers out there. It's about 1.8 splitting the top 10 of this 12-car field, so they've certainly got a lot to play with.
Yeah, they absolutely do. There's still a lot of time left on the board, potentially. And I do think some of those drivers will be looking to try and get to grips with that. Try and find those extra pieces of tarmac that they can use on the circuit, and which bits they can't use. It's best to do it now before you go on to your final lap, and then try and use a little extra bit, find out it doesn't work, and fire yourself off onto a lap that won't matter. But overall, really impressed with some of the drivers, especially the ones we've seen, Jake, that have gone from the single-seater Formula 1 video game and have jumped into these big, chunky GT3 cars and have found themselves looking very, very competitive. Adrian Manduca and Ryan Carabot amongst those as well.
Yeah, so there is that really close battle. Muscat has just gone quickest, and by a very slim margin out there, 17 thousandths of a second, just the difference out there at this point. Manduca will need to improve then in the Ferrari, but there's also the McLaren of Aaron De Baptista, who will be looking to try and put himself into the mix then in the final stages. There is a delay in terms of what we're able to give you, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologise. We're having a few issues with our feed at the moment, not necessarily yours, which you can see action of at this moment in time. But it is 4 clear at the front with another 6 in the next second bracket, and then it's Martinelli and Gat who make up the rest of the field for the 12. De Batista going over towards the line. So Manduka's gone quicker again by now 100th of a second only the difference. So it is really chop and change all up at the top.
Absolutely, you're really looking at this moment in time and just thinking who's actually going to put it on pole. There's a yellow as well out there. That was for Smith in the number 9, in the number 1 Ferrari down there in P9. So yeah, few challenges all throughout the circuit, but yeah, they're just having to avoid those yellows as well. A couple of drivers in the pits, in fact, they're potentially saying to themselves, I can't do any more. I wonder if that'll be their qualifying done and dusted with 3 minutes left to go on the clock. I do think if there's big potential here of being able to really make something happen at this moment in time. But yeah, just continue to look around the grid. I think there's a lot of driver potential now. I think we're now starting to prep here for those last dying laps. 1 to go, I'd say here, Jake.
Yeah, so they'll only have 1 opportunity left here to try and put, I would say, a real flying lap together on the board, because they will need at least 1:27 to get around the circuit to get themselves going. I'd say at least a minute and a half left, and with 2 minutes and a half and less remaining on the clock, you really get the sense that these drivers now have to put their best foot forward, have to find lap time out there. Denzel Agius, who is known as a better racer than qualifier traditionally, finds himself in 5th position right now, and hoping that he can launch himself a little bit closer, give himself a little bit of a gap to those behind us. Galea has moved to the 5th position now with his time about a second off the pace of Adrian Manduka. We'll see if Denzel Agius will improve on his lap time. The answer to that is no, was short by a 10th of a second on that run. But this is crunch time for those laps, and for these drivers who know that they're trying to get a bit of tire temperature underneath them at the moment in the dying stages of qualifying.
They are really looking to try and just use every piece of circuit, like I said. But these drivers, it is really, as you said here, Jake, it is crunch time. They're looking for that extra 10 they have. You see the gap there between Manduka and Muscat. Only 100th of a second. That can very easily be changed in a flip of a switch. And of course, you've got the 3 McLarens of De Batista and Galea and Denzel Agius. Of course, he's well known for being in his Lexus in the Gran Turismo 7 series we had a couple of weeks ago. But he is now in a McLaren for the time being, and I wonder if any of those can potentially make improvements. Of course, we saw Manduka just go fastest there, so extending his time with Muscat now on the move. I think there's going to be a real tough one here, and I wonder if that 94 could potentially go top.
Well, very much could do. Adrian Manduka, a full 10th clear, is going to be very happy with where he's perched at this moment. But when you've got Sheldon Muscat there, when you've got Ryan Carabot sniffing around, Aaron De Batista not a million miles away, every single lap becomes important. And if you've strung it all together the way that you know how, this could be an almighty time that comes in on the board. He's slightly missed the final apex, and you've got the eyes on it before we do over the line. But for Sheldon Muscat, he did improve by 300ths, but 300ths not enough to take the pole position away. So Manduka will feel he's done, Muscat done, which means it leaves itself to the likes of Ryan Carabot, who is one of the last drivers to come around and try and set a time in his very light blue Ferrari out there on circuit. So he'll be hoping that, as the checker flag has already fallen here in qualifying, that his effort is going to be one that certainly has worked out in his favour. That is going to be something he is thinking about time in, time out. Can I maximise every apex heading to the Villeneuve chicane and over then towards Lehman, the right-hander 90 degrees out there on circuit, which can find the time that he wants. Galea and Denzel Agius, the only other 2 drivers currently out there on a flying lap on our screen at the moment, so we'll see whether that is going to be enough to jump on forward and gain that time and position on then with the 22. So Galea will be first on our screens to go and cross the line and improve, and doesn't necessarily get that much with the checkered flag out, so it will rely on the likes of number 13 to come to the line, as Denzel Agius couldn't find the improvement that was needed. But as Ryan Carabot crosses the line, he does find the front row, which is absolutely mega, Adam.
Absolutely brilliant there from Ryan Carabos, and a driver that kind of went under the radar just a little bit midway through the session, but now find himself perfectly plopped on that second row. And that beautiful papaya, cyan and black McLaren you're seeing on your screens, or may have just seen on your screens, a brilliant livery. But overall, we are really looking at a brilliant grid. Yes, it's only 12 drivers, but we can make something happen with those 12 drivers that we currently have on the grid. Overall, we are really seeing something very, very intriguing. You're just seeing there on your left-hand side, Muscat now in third, played with De Baptista, and then it's going to be Galea, followed by Agius, and followed by Denzel Agius, and then the other Agius with Mifsud, of course, a former GT3 driver there, with Smith, McAuliffe, and rounding out your top 12. But really looking forward to see how this is going to turn out.
Well, we are as well. We're going to take one very quick step away. When we come back, we'll be in race mode.
The all-new Hyundai Kona, seriously fun.
And so, we find ourselves very, very close to the start of racing action here from Zolder. They will be very much aware of what they will need to do over the course of today's action, Adam. But this is going to be one which they sit down and look at and go, it's 2 Ferraris at the front, followed by the Bentley, followed by the 3 McLarens out there. It is going to feel very much like it is class-style warfare out there to start as they go through. Worth noting, they will have 1 full pace lap to get their tyre temperatures up into the operating windows out there. So this is going to be an important opening out there. Adrian Manduka currently your pace setter as far as qualifying went.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just going to make their way through those first couple of corners and on towards the second set of corners, and then past the canal that runs past the west side of the circuit. Of course, they'll try and heat up their tyres. I think brake temperature will be very, very important. You do not want to be barreling into that first corner in any of the circuits we have on the calendar with very, very cold brakes. Of course, tyres will be key to be able to get up to temperature. When you go into that sharp left-hander, you'll find yourself going off the circuit and off into the gravel trap on the exit there at turn number 1, which is not where you want to be in this 45-minute race. But just looking down the grid, we do see the Ferraris have got some really, really good pace on them, but also the McLarens have been a little bit of a thorn in the side. Aaron Baptista really proving himself all throughout that qualifying session. He's just been in that mid-pack and put in that really, really good time by the time he got round to that end of the lap. But if you really had to stick a winner on this, well, it would be very, very difficult, because of course, so two Ferraris on the front row of Manduka and Karabot, some absolute brilliant sim racers in their own right for many, many different reasons, both with strength and with very little weaknesses to pull off the list. You kind of do see them, but in their kind of first live GT3 race that we're currently seeing, yeah, will they be able to handle the pressure of the drivers behind, which potentially have a bit more experience? I can't really see the Bentley taking the victory, because it might not be the best in terms of the full length of the race. But what about those McLarens? I may have to put my money down here on Aaron Baptista, a former race winner, but we'll have to see how it kind of turns out in this one, Jake.
We certainly will. Of course, we've got still a few issues out there with our production feed, so we'll give you the sounds as they start this race with Adrian Manduka and Ryan Karabot on the front here at Zolder.
We are absolutely about to go through on towards our first set, and currently on from what I'm seeing, they're about to head now on towards the start-finish straight and head for green, and they head their way down in towards the first corner, and they'll have to now weave their way through, find their way through, pick the spots as they head their way on past the canal. We'll have to see if they potentially just try and get through cleanly. We now have our feed, and it looks like Manduka's managed to stay ahead here, but Karabot is just in behind.
Yeah, he's managed to do a fantastic job then off of the start of this race as Manduka. He's built the gap that he wants to early on, but look at how far it seems it's Ryan Karabot who has been caught out in the early stages out there as things go. I believe we just lost our feed, so at this moment in time we're running into quite a few problems here at this stage, but at this moment it's about finding what you need early on. It looks like Denzel Agis might be another driver who's been in a bit of trouble in the early stages of this race, so those two drivers way back down have a long way to fight back over the course of 45 minutes here, Adam, as the cones start flying down at the Villeneuve chicane, and Manduka got himself the opportunity he wants at the front, but he wants a bit more than that.
He does, and he's heading their way down in towards turn number 8. You've seen that big old Bentley right behind the show of Muscat. He's really proving to be a man on the prowl in these early stages, but yeah, not the best start there for Karabot. He finds his way tumbling down the grid, but as they'll start to get in towards a bit of a rhythm here, find themselves where they sit with their cars amongst this circuit. Well, they've had those 20 minutes of qualifying, but already just seeing they head their way down. I think that's Muscat on the move. Around the outside, he's going to have a look here, but I don't think he's going to have to move just yet. Just trying to apply the pressure there and keep Manduka looking up the inside. I think he may be able to get the move from what we're seeing on our feed, sticking on that right-hand side. And I think with Lucien Bianchi, I think the Bentley will just about now pull up into the lead here. The 94 in the lead of this race for the first time with a brilliant maneuver there. Muscat, he's here at Zolder.
Yeah, he certainly does at this stage, and that was a lovely move which was able to be concocted using the pure grunt of the Bentley to gain that position back. So Aaron De Battista now will be next on the list, trying to manufacture his way through as the front five looking good there. And of course, you got that forward of the other Agius out there trying to find a way through and to gain a bit of time out there. So we're really getting the sense now that there is going to be a lot to play with, and they've got such a wide pit window. Look at Manduka, he is so close to the back of Sheldon Muscat through every single corner. They've got a really wide window coming to make that pit stop, so it's already open here on lap 2, which means that you can do some pretty wide and different strategies out there. For example, if you were Ryan Carabot, for example, who's down in the pit as things stand, it wouldn't be a bad decision to come into the pits, make an early call, and then try and quietly work your way back through with lap times on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be an option, but it does seem to be they did that at the end of the first lap and has not come out. But we're currently sitting here with Manduka. He heads his way now in towards the the right-hander of Lucien Bianchi, to trying to follow in the footsteps, the tyre tracks of Sheldon Muscat. Now just analysing where is that Bentley stronger and where are the weaknesses. He'll try and take advantage of the weaknesses of that Bentley, but of course this is going to be a race-long battle. And with the McLaren there, De Battista, of course he's had previous experiences in this championship being streamed in the past. I think he will be definitely having the bit between his teeth and really looking to see if he can potentially make a move. We'll hope that Manduka and Muscat just continue to battle away and he puts in the lap times.
Yeah, he'll be hoping for everything and a little bit more there in terms of those lap times. A little search over to the left-hand side as he tried to make the move into the final chicane out there. So that was always going to be a case of, can you find that move? Not quite was the answer that was looked at there for the moment, but the fastest lap is there for Sheldon Muscat, which is marked on your timing tower on the left-hand side by the purple check mark next to the number, or using the number as well. And it looks like that 52 car has gone off, so that's the other of the Agiuses they're out there on circuit. So it might even be car 12 who's in problem. Yeah, it was car 12 there, so that would have been Mifsud, who found himself around in the Ferrari through the early stage of the lap. So disaster there through the opening section, but as they all look to try and tiptoe their way around, it's the front three that find themselves clear, and they will pretty much try and work together. If you can hold within a gap of about half a second here, Adam, heading towards the pit window, you're going to feel quite comfy over the course of this race. Drivers like to go longer rather than shorter in terms of their strategy, but in a race of 45 minutes, we'll often see a case of 50 and 50 normally done in terms of percentage of this race. You can see who will need to stop and who doesn't need to make their stop by the number 1 check mark. It will go green when drivers have come in and made their pit stops within the pit window.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see where those pit stops come about, because of course, like you said, this window is open. You see that at the top of your timing graphic is open to all. So it'll be interesting to see who will be able to, who will decide to take that first leap or jump into the unknown and try and potentially get an undercut. It may be that the tyres will prove to be the factor, and there you go. Agius is going to be in the other of the Agiuses, so making an early pit stop in the brand new Ford Mustang GT3, which comes trundling into the pit lane and will serve a first pit stop. So the first pit stop of the GT Championship will be performed by the Ford mechanics. But looking at this move here, this is Chris Gatt in the number 7 McLaren, looking to potentially get a move there on the beautiful almost kind of red is that? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to look that up in the afterwards. But Martinelli there in the other Ferrari, the 296, continue to head their way through. I think that's going to be another battle to really keep a keen eye out for.
Yeah, it is going to be worth keeping an eye out on to see whether that does go the right or the wrong way. But on the brakes then in through the Villeneuve chicane, and now moving towards Lehman here in the second half of the lap. So it effectively puts itself in a nice couple of phases out there, and you're always looking to try and use some pace to get yourself back into the realm of attacking out there, as Agius will leave the pits now, and it's a long pits by surprise, especially when you consider the pit exit out there as well, because you've always got that opportunity to say you've got that long launch over towards the opening sections of circuit, so you pretty much find yourself right back on the line heading through Observatory Bend turn 2 out there on circuit. GAT still having to look behind, because it's not just going to be the case of having to deal with Mifsud, it's also Denzel Agius who's dropped back into 10th position, so on board with Samuel Mifsud, trying to find that angle, going a little bit too much rotation there through the opening corner, and now having to struggle to get back. A little clip of the inside anti-cut curbs there from GAT is going to be something that he's going to be working on here, and of course when you've got Martinelli in front, that's a very good marker to try and find an angle to try and chase down. A little bit wide through the corner though. This will be the chance that Samuel Mifsud was looking for, straight down to the inside. No arguments about it. Thank you very much. He's through.
Yeah, it was a simple move there. A bit of a wide moment there from Chris Gatt, and unfortunately there for the beautiful almost Garage 59 British GT replica livery, or it's a bit maybe inspired also by the Formula 1 livery, I'd say more towards that. Yeah, it just went off the track into the gravel trap, dipped a tyre, and unfortunately that is the kind of the result. You're seeing just how narrow this track is and kind of what it means to be trying to use a little bit more of the circuit than the car can go with. You find yourself going down a position. I think Denzel Agius will be having a look and seeing if he can pressurize GAT potentially in the same place. Martinelli there in the Burgundy Ferrari isn't getting away either. We know Mifsud is a very, very quick driver, and in that Ferrari can prove a little bit of a can provide to be a little bit of a problem. But will he have the strength to catch down a driver of a similar kind of car? Of course, both in that Ferrari GT3, and I think that's going to be very, very difficult. There's going to be a little bit more to try and push on there. Meanwhile, back at the lead here, De Baptista closing here on Manduka. Manduka may be feeling the pressure, but I think, oh, it looks like he's that is the Ford Meyer of Agius there.
Agius. Yeah, so that is Agius who's being lap traffic, and he's got every reason to try and hold the pace of Sheldon Muscat here at this moment in time, because of the fact of how important it is. Moves over to the inside though here, heading into the Boulderberg hairpin, and then it's about drive off the exit. So the one caveat with pitting early is you've got a field that basically hasn't expanded itself out, and you may have to concede the lap because you have to fuel the car up fully first and foremost and get the tyre changes done, but they're not something that happens necessarily together here, Adam. They're separate.
Yeah, it is going to be separate in that case. But I just want to continue to kind of talk about this lead battle, because Manduka, right at this moment in time, still having to play a little bit of cat and mouse here after getting that early overtake, being overtaken earlier by Sheldon Muscat. That Bentley, that beautiful orange and black Bentley, will be cruising out in front, gaining a little bit of experience in the lead of this race so far. But Manduka will be knowing and learning every single corner, every single lap, and the fuel continues to burn, the tyres start to go through the rubber. I think there will be opportunities later on, but yeah, I don't think strategy will be on the minds of the leaders for this moment in time. Agius just wanted to get it out of the way, and by that it's unfortunately not gone his way, and he found himself lapped by the leaders. But at this moment in time, De Baptista is being a little bit held up. Maybe he's made a couple of mistakes around the lap, I wonder here, Jake.
Yeah, so you're looking at Aaron De Batista. I think he's had a bit of lap traffic of his own account, which he's now starting to struggle with. So he's been dropped now by these two, Sheldon Muscat and Adrian Manduka, who will be looking to try and rush away here in this one. That Bentley proves to be a massive hulking shape rushing up the hill. That Ferrari can be perfectly poised in behind, and it creates this perfect drafting shape for the Ferrari to stay right tucked in and close. 94 versus 93 right now, and at the moment you could say that there are 93.5 might be the number that wins this race, because both of these drivers have a great chance of getting there one or the other here on lap 8. they find themselves at this stage running through Lucian Bianchi corner, which is, of course, the uncle to the legendary Jules Bianchi, who tragically lost his life in Suzuka a decade ago. And now you get the sense, now heading over the chicanes, that Sheldon Muscat and Adrian Manduca, it's going to be between them, and off the road goes the McLaren. So that's De Battista in the gravel back there, and he's going to drop a little bit of time.
He is, and that's going to be massively unfortunate. I don't know how he's going to try and get that back, but of course, it looks like the chicane just proved to be the unfortunate falling of Aaron De Baptiste. But riding on board here with Adrian Manduca closes up to the Bentley, so seems to be a bit more confident on the brake pedal. But what about that throttle pedal? I wonder if it's going to be a little bit harder to get that Ferrari out of the corner compared to the Bentley. And also, of course, TC traction control can prove to be a bit of a change in here, because of course you can decide to have that that TC off. Yeah, big wiggle there from the rear of Manduca as he continues to push on. But yeah, traction control can be deployed on these cars. You can have it at 0, you can have it at 1, or maybe if in full wet conditions you can have it about an 8, or you can get it at 12, depending on your car of choice. You do want it to be around about 1, unless you do have that nice kind of foot on the pedal. If you can finally put your foot on the throttle, you can definitely have it at a 0, and that could give you maybe a 2 or maybe even 3 tenths per lap. But if I was a driver in one of those cockpits, I'd definitely just have it at 1, just because there's so many chicanes throughout there. You just see they're hopping over clean chicane. You just need to get all the power out there. The last thing you want to be doing is getting on those curves, spinning your wheels up and going round. But and that's what kind of cost De Baptista a good 3 or 4 seconds.
Well, the thing about traction control is that it is a driver aid for these cars out there, and it will give that ability to plant the power down a little bit better. But there's a reason why you don't want too much of it, because the more that you go through the traction control settings, the more it takes away the power on acceleration for overall stability. And then at that point, if you're putting too much traction control in the car, you will be losing the time out there, which could be something very difficult to try and recover from. There is the 12 of Samuel Mifsud looking around at Brendan Mikulev out there, who's doing a wonderful job in the BMW to be out there in P6. You can see the weather vane, or the tuning fork sometimes, up there on the top there of the Ferrari, which is giving a very unique sight into this car, and it gives an indication really of what the weather's doing up there and what sort of balances are going to be playing into it. It sort of looks like someone's left an Allen key on top of the car.
It does. In fact, he looks at the inside on that BMW M4 GT3, but looking at losing the rear there, he tried to plant the power down with all of the right boot that he has. But wide moment there for the BMW on Mikulev. Now it looks like he's going to have to hand over that 6th place there to the beautiful multicolored Ferrari with mainly the purple on that car. But there you go, Mifsud now up to P6. I wonder if he will now look at going to chase down that number 5 at the BMW number 46. Not looking at giving up anytime soon. Of course, same number, same car that is used by the legendary Valentino Rossi in his GT career. But now Manduca looking around the outside of that Bentley, but just being covered off there down in towards the last chicane of Jackie Hicks. But he's now potentially got the power here to try and make a move. Is he going to on the left side or the right side here, Jake?
Well, that Ferrari's very good through the slower speed corners compared to the Bentley. The Bentley is just covering everything off, it seems, at the moment. Sheldon Muscat hanging on with a chip in the chair to this race lead as it stands. 28 minutes and a half left to go here in this race. Track only expected to get colder as we're in sim time, just gone 20 past 4 in the afternoon. But the real issue right now is that Ferrari and its ability to pull in a straight line and make that move here on Sheldon Muscat. So Adrian Manduca might be trying to look here at the pit lane, and the only issue he's going to run into is if he pits first here, Adam, he's going to have to try and find a way past Sheldon Muscat, if at all possible, which is going to be the big key over the course of this race when it comes to getting that track position for the pits. If he has to make the lunge through on what is a single track pit. He does not want to be held up. He wants a straight line, and he wants to attack the pit entry.
You're right, he does have to try and kind of second guess where Manduka is going. I think the best thing, if you are Muscat, I think the best thing to do is just cover off Manduka. He goes into the pits, you come in the next lap, otherwise you could find yourself in a little bit of trouble. You could try and go in for the undercut, but of course Manduka may have that extra bit of pace that he has left in the car to be able to then go past you in terms of pit stops. So you just want to be holding that Ferrari as much as humanly possible in this first stint as they head their way through and on towards the canal river, which they pass by and see all the windmills in the background. Through Lucia and Bianchi, they all head, and they're just continuing to dig at it and dig at it, trying to find any piece there. You can see that a little bit of dirt being flicked up there by either the Bentley or the Ferrari, but down in towards the chicane once again, this battle starts to heat up. But Baptista, again, 6.2 seconds. He's really not had the best time around here, and the only way he can potentially gain up to this is going in and pitting early. I'm not sure if that will be option on the mind of the McLaren driver at all.
Yeah, so on the minds of these drivers, you really do get a sense that right now they are looking at racing 1v1 at the front, Muscat versus Manduka. They've got the gap to De Battista in what is third position of about 6.5 seconds, so they don't have to worry too much about him behind, only if he pits maybe earlier and tries to get a huge undercut on strategy, but they should have that in hand as they go through. Oh, and Adrian Manduka making that call very, very late to dive down in. Now, it's not going to be as swift here, his overall entry time, so he's going to need this lap to be fantastic when he comes out of the pits, dancing through the lane at 50 kilometers an hour, I think it is, transit lane speed. So there's going to be a lot of work to try and pull this one through, but for Sheldon Muscat, this needs to be a powerful lap to capitalize on the advantage that he will now try and build.
Yep, he's just got to absolutely go with it and run like the wind in that beautiful 94 Bentley. Looking back here, this is Denzel Agius in the McLaren in the 98. He's looking at challenging Brandon McAuliffe in the number 46 BMW. That's going to be for 7th place. A little bit of damage there on the front end of the 89. I think he maybe touched a few cars throughout this first couple of laps here, especially in his first stint. But of course, you've just got to get out right underneath those cars. And I think there's also a little bit to the side there. There's definitely going to be a few mud scratches there on the side of that car. So we now see them coming into clean chicane. Nothing doing so far, but I think our attention is going to be very much turned back to the front of the field with Muscat about to approach that chicane of Jackie Hicks with that option to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, so you're really getting the sense here that Muscat is thinking about whether he wants to make that call or not. Manduka, by comparison, the number 93 car, has come out exactly where he wants to. Galea is going to make the call to jump in, though, in his McLaren, so that's going to be one driver making that decision to stop. But as we aren't even at the halfway stage of 45 minutes, Sheldon Muscat here is going to be trying to, and so too Aaron De Battista, to run as long as they can, because they will also realise as well that this might be a fuel game that they're out there and playing with, in the sense that they might have to put less fuel in the car at their stop, and as such have a shorter stop.
It will be interesting, of course, because of course you will put fuel in that car, and like you said, talking about shorter stops, you do want to make that that pit stop as short as possible. But yeah, when you do have that fuel just continuing to burn away, I do wonder if that Muscat will be in a little bit of trouble, because of course I thought he went into the pit lane. Looks like he didn't. Well, that's going to be very interesting. 2 laps now that he's not come into the pit lane here. But De Battista just trying to gain here on the back of Muscat, but there's not been much success in it. Meanwhile, Manduka will be looking to try and pull his way through the field in that number 93. We're currently looking at the 13 Ferrari of Carabot, who's, of course, not had the greatest of races either.
Yeah, so Karabot, of course, found himself around right in the early corners of this race, along with Denzel Agius. And really for Karabot, he spent over a lap, and a drive-through penalty comes in for Denzel Agius out on circuit. So he'll have to try and manage another trip through. And there is Denzel Agius as he leaves the pit. So that would indicate to me speeding on pit exit.
Yep, that looks like where it'll come. You don't want to be deploying that that button too early, and this does look like a replay of Agius. So we'll just see that maybe just a bit before. Yeah, potentially releasing the button a little bit too early before then coming out onto the circuit. But yeah, never ideal there for the McLaren. And of course, the drive-through penalty is what will come his way. But overall, I think we're in a really, really good spot in terms of this league battle, with Muscat still leading out in terms of all in all out overall. But I wonder what Manduca's paces are looking like. Of course, we've not got any kind of relative in terms of time, but yeah, Manduca's still pushing away in that Ferrari. See if he can gain there. Next opponent will be Chris Gatt, but he's 17 seconds down the road.
Well, 17 seconds is a long gap to try and deal with, but for the moment, Sheldon Muscat is just focusing on lap time. That last time by a 28.5, when we see Adrian Manduca, by comparison, in his 93 machine, who's just going through the Klein chicane right now on circuit. So it's about 3/4 of a lap. The difference then on the pit stop will get a real indicator in terms of what they are looking for in terms of their stops. How good has the strategy game been out there overall? There is James Smith, who is running the white and red out there at the moment, quote unquote, with the Marlborough team. And we do not recommend smoking here with Velocity Esports Racing, that much we do know. But he is certainly hoping that he's got a real chance in his car, his Ferrari, to try and gain something important. He's looking at Galea, he's looking at the Agius brothers, and how to try and pivot forward and gain a top 5 finish.
Yeah, I think you will be looking at trying to potentially make that happen. A couple of yellow flags out on the circuit. That's going to be Chris Gatt down at the Jackie Ick chicane to the last chicane. But keeping with tabs here with James Smith, I think there is definitely potential for that Marlborough livery, or recreation livery, I should say, of the white and red. But he's just at this moment in time still got those fast drivers of Manduca. Galea is also in there in that number 22 McLaren, so I think he's got to get that pit stop potentially done and out of the way. So he'll definitely have to do it soon. But at this moment in time, it does seem like he is confident in terms of he's confident in terms of pace. But there is Chris. He pulled over to the side of the road. I don't think there was an accident. Could that possibly be out of fuel here, Jake?
Fuel could be one thing, being a technical issue could very much be another. So I don't know whether we're going to get a replay further back enough, which is going to be an indicator of whether that was one which ended up being the wrong way for Gatt there. But that is a very dangerously placed car right on the entrance to the final chicane. In fact, he's pulled it into pit. So it looks like for Gatt, he's had to take a tow back to the lane, and that will put him down at the back. Pit stop central, though, finds itself in play with Samuel Mifsud in, along with Jamie Smith, and as well, of course, Gatt, which we see down in the lane. So we are firmly in that pit stop window now, where drivers are thinking, okay, maybe we are going as far as we can on this tank of fuel, and there isn't really that much more we can do if we're playing a fuel-limited game, no matter what strategy dictates.
It will be interesting to see who decides to make the pit stop there. Daryl Martinelli, wow. I was going to say take a bow, but it was also a mistake. A great save nonetheless there for Daryl Martinelli in the 296, but he just got to continue on his way, and he is currently still in fourth place for the moment, trying to catch down, or should I say chase down Brendan McAuliffe there in the BMW number 90, BMW M4 GT3 in the number 46. It looks like also we've had James Smith come into the pit lane as well. So the beautiful, the beautiful burgundy red of Smith has now made his pit stop. He's fallen behind Galea. He is now potentially looking at Misfit, who's now just coming upon him as well. There is Aaron De Baptista in the pit lane here, so he is making that pit stop now. I think now all eyes are going to turn here on Muscat here in the Bentley. He's done 18 laps on this single set. As out goes there, the 94 of Muscat. It will be. Let's see.
Well, let's see indeed, because there is Manduka. He's running through turn 1, but it looks like car 94 is overcut quite nicely in the sense that he's had to put less fuel in the car. So that is a big pit stop by Sheldon Muscat in the Bentley. He has done absolutely everything right there, and he has got himself a margin. But Adrian Manduka will be needing these few laps to try and chase that gap down. Still 17 minutes and under left here in this race. So now it becomes a case of Sheldon Muscat and Adrian Manduka, 4.5 seconds the difference. That is just made on pure pace.
That is brilliant there for Sheldon Muscat. He really played his cards to perfection. It just doesn't seem like that Bentley is a qualifying car. It is mainly for those races, and that is where this Bentley does come alive. It may be a big chunky car compared to others on this current grid. It may be up in the tiers of the BMW, the Ford, and maybe also I think we have a Lexus in the game as well. So it's in that kind of category of car, the big and chunky. But in this race, Sheldon Muscat has really just made that car sing and got it under control, and the strategy has just come off to absolute perfection. And now Manduka had the difficult part of trying to catch him down.
Yeah, and so if he's got to try and give this chase, he's got to find all the pace he can. And I'm just wondering whether he's got a little bit of damage on the front, potentially, which is why he's dropped down those gaps. So that's going to be something worth keeping in mind. I think he's okay, though, out there. It's just the front left that I'm maybe a little bit concerned about at this moment, but it looks all right. So Adrian Manduka here trying to give that chase, that haul down. It might be that someone like Daryl Martinelli's going to be there. Drive through for Brandon Mikulev. So Mikulev then's going to have to take a drive through and his stop. So he won't be able to take his stop when he wants to, because I think the drive through takes priority. So Bertrand Mikulev, he's got it all to do.
He does, and I think he's just got to try and get that out of the way at this moment in time. Just get it done, out of the way, and kind of deal with the consequences now when you have the time. So, of course, he's going to now make his way through and goes into Jackie X. Interesting now on the 46. I'm not sure if he's kind of just ignoring it for now and try and deal with it in the latter stages, because at this moment in time, he is, in a way, leading the race officially by a good margin over Daryl Martinelli. Martinelli just coming over the line, and we'll get an idea on that gap. 10.1 is the gap. So yeah, he'll be relishing that with all that he can, but we're still a pit stop and a drive-through to go. It's going to be a very difficult run to go with here for Mikulev, and I think he's going to have to try and bounce back, hopefully, at the next round of the championship next week.
Well, he'll be looking around and thinking, well, what do I do next time around when Silverstone jumps on the horizon? If a drive-through penalty comes through, you can pretty much say how difficult it is. And look how close it is right now between Jamie Smith and Samuel Mifsud for position. They'll be hoping that there's going to be this fantastic fervour and launch, which is going to put that Ferrari past the other Ferrari and into 7th position at the moment, which looks likely to be for 5th position out there. This racing battle with Mikulev and Martinelli due to make those stops. Martinelli will be hoping for a quick stop late, so too will Ryan Karabot out there at this point. We have lost a couple drivers out there from the 13. We got down to 11 drivers that we're now sat with currently, because we've had drivers drop out of the race. But there is the lights flashing from Sheldon Muscat, who realises he wants Martinelli out of the way, and quite handily he gets that as he launches himself into the pit lane.
He does, and that is going to be serving the pit stops. So both the top two officially in the race have come into the pit stops. Of course, made their one pit stop and the other drive-through penalty. So now Muscat's job here is to just survive, keep that Bentley in the lead here, keep it on the circuit, keep it on the black stuff for the next 12 minutes and 40 seconds, and you'll be able to take the flag and win the opening round of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship here at Zolder, and hopefully we'll go on an absolute run of races. We'll have to see how that kind of turns out when we get over to some of them. That's a big amount of curve there for Muscat. But Manduka is gaining here, I believe, 3 seconds between the two, and really trying to build on what he's got. His best lap time of a 27.4. His last time around was a 28.0, so only 6 tenths off his best lap time, which is not too bad considering those tyres will be really starting to go, and he is starting to reel in him on Muscat. Is this game on here, Jake?
Well, that could definitely be game on. Here is another bit of game on that's there at the moment. Into the Kleiner chicane, and having to jump the curb is Smith. So James Smith has to keep himself out of the way because of Mifsud, who's there trying to get through. Mikolev there, of course, in the BMW, in the middle of this. But remember, he's still got to make the mandatory and is sliding about, heading towards Kleiman, and there is not much that he can do except just hold on to the Sign Warehouse Racing BMW at this point and hope that this time he can launch himself into the pits the same way Ryan Karabot is down there right now. This completely cost Samuel Mifsud in terms of what he was hoping for out there in this race. So Mifsud here is hoping that he can just see that car go straight on, and Mikolev does to take the mandatory stop. Look at the time that it's going to cost, though, as he exits the final corner.
It will be a long pit stop because we're now into kind of this over the second half of this race with 10 minutes remaining. You're really starting to see how long he's going to have to wait. I was going to say wait in the pit stop, but in fact I've kind of just had a rejink in my brain, and it's not going to be a long time. It's just going to be potentially a couple of seconds. I want to say maybe 15 to 20 seconds just serving fuel, and then he'll be able to head back out there. But yeah, it's a long pit lane as well to take into consideration, and he will lose a position there to Agis as well. I believe maybe even Martinelli. But look at this with the leaders now, 2.2 the gap. I think Muscat's now realised what's on the line here, what is coming up behind him, and he's now had to put the throttle down and try and maybe make a gap that's comfortable. Yeah, that's 1.9 seconds. Well spotted there, Jake. That is going to really start to fill the boots of excitement here of Adrian Manduka. They head their way through the first couple of corners, slowly catch a monkey, and he'll be able to catch the Bentley up ahead in no time at all.
Well, this is big in terms of what Adrian Manduka is looking at. He's been having to try and pull that gap in time and time again, lap after lap. Look at it, half a second in the first sector alone. Sheldon Muscat starting to feel the pressure here with 9 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. Adrian is trying to throw what he can down to say, I can catch this Bentley, I can pass this Bentley, and I can take the championship lead here in the season opener. So this is a wonderful bit of driving, and sometimes when you give a driver a challenge like Adrian Manduka, it's a little bit different when you're nose to tail and you're just waiting for strategy here, Adam. But the fact that he's had to claw down 4.5 seconds is just proof. And look at that gap, it's now under a second.
It is under a second, and now he's starting to really climb on the pressure. So maybe the weakness or potential of that Bentley may be late stage racing. So maybe, I don't know if he's burnt through the tyres, if he's burnt through maybe the fuel a little bit too much. Is he going to have to go on the save here? Here comes the gap now, half a second. Unbelievable stuff. That has now closed 1.4 seconds in that last lap. Manduka is a man on a mission, and that 93 could attack at any point. Now, I wonder if the nerves are going to come in here for Manduka, because he knows that there is not going to be many places he can overtake. Potentially turn one, but you've got to get your elbows out. Clean chicane, but you've got to make sure you're there and you're through before making that maneuver. You can't make it in towards the Villeneuve chicane. That's a little bit too much, and I don't think you'll be able to make it into Boulderberg. I think that's just a little bit too tetchy there, and of course Muscat has all the road to close in here, but look how close the gap is. He is right on the tail here and could have moved down in towards turn 8, be the way to go with 7.5 minutes left on the clock.
Well, that could be the key at the Boulderberg hairpin. There was a thought down to the inside. Oh, they're starting to really find blocks here. But watch the drive out to the exit. This is where the Ferrari's actually better, and he'll get the drive off the exit. Muscat now will move over to the outside, hoping he's got something late on the brakes in towards the final chicane. He doesn't. Adrian Manduka take a bow. They threw lefts and rights and ups and downs, but ultimately Manduka psyched out Sheldon.
That's a brilliant move. He went defensive there into Boulderberg, but it just didn't quite work. And then with the power, the acceleration of that Ferrari meant you could just power on through. I think also Muscat just tried to send Manduka a little bit defensive, send him off rhythm through the Jackie chicane, and then onto the straight. It was just nothing but power from that Ferrari. Now Muscat is starting to slide. You just saw that out of Lucien Bianchi. The rear of that Bentley is starting to go a little bit haywire. It's starting to go a little bit all over the road. It's like exploring the surface, it's like exploring the asphalt, and now is looking to potentially try and find a way through. What has Muscat got up his sleeve with 6 minutes to go? He's going to have to produce a spectacular as he heads his way now through turn 8, where we saw the scene of that beautiful round the outside maneuver on switchback of Manduka. Muscat's too far back.
Well, he's too far back, but he's keeping himself in range. He's not completely dropped out of range right now, and I think that's rather important to keep in mind, how this is going to be all about Sheldon's ability to persevere here in this one and find a little bit of life in those tyres that maybe he doesn't quite have at this stage of the race. This is where you're going to have to be perfect. There's traffic as well in front, and that is the 296 of Daryl Martinelli that they're going to have to try and navigate a way through. But again, Manduka just pulling that gap. There's just understeering buckets right now for Sheldon Muscat. That Ferrari's a lot more poised around this circuit, and the bigger, bulkier, higher car that is there in the Bentley is really struggling right now, and with a lot more weight to deal with too, is definitely having to struggle with understeer right now with the tyres that he's got available. He's throwing everything he can, including throwing the lights in. He's got every trick in the book right now, but he falls outside of a second.
Yep, and that's going to be that's going to be quite crucial there, starting to lose touch here with Manduka. He is hoping that Martinelli can just get out of the way, get out of the road, and be nice to the leading pair. But of course, oh my goodness me, off into the grass. That was almost race done and dusted, and the gap now drops to 1.3 seconds, so not as major as I thought it would be. But Muscat is trying to pull all the strings potentially to try and make his way back up to the rear of Manduka, but I just can't see any faults in that Ferrari. He's got past Martinelli. Martinelli's going to go on the brakes, allow the Bentley through as well, so it's still within that 1.5, but again the rear steps out there for the Bentley. Over the timing beam they'll go. Manduka leads onto lap 27, 1.8 is the gap, 4 minutes to go. Bring it home, Manduka.
Well, I think for Sheldon Muscat, he's going to have to wave a white flag here in terms of this battle, because Adrian Manduka has got him absolutely scouted here in this race. There is not much that can be said or done about the way that he has driven this one right now. He has built that margin through some hard work and determination, and he's got the car working in a way that Sheldon Muscat, quite simply put, hasn't out there. They have left Aaron De Battista in the dust to the tune of about a quarter of a minute. You've got the likes there of Galea, who's back a further 12.5 seconds, and you're really getting the sense that this is definitely opening out here in your ACER Malta GT3 Championship. But Adrian Manduka has had to dig deep and find a challenge here in this season opener, but there's no guarantees that anything will be easier around Silverstone when we consider a week's time.
Silverstone is going to be a whole different challenge, and I'd like to delve into that after the broadcast here of this race. But Manduka is just absolutely on a fly, and like I said, I didn't really see any potential fault with that Ferrari. Just hopefully his equipment will stay right up, and I'm sure it will absolutely will. But there is Aaron De Baptista. We got to give credit there to De Baptista. He's held his third place well. He's not come under any challenges from behind, but also he's not quite challenged from the front. But I'm sure the De Baptista will be looking to do that in that beautiful orange and blue and black McLaren as he hurdles his way over that timing line. And I think he'll be happy with third place. I think there will still be a couple of touches there to try and patch up for the next race at Silverstone, and I wonder if the McLaren may potentially see that just a little bit more when we come around to that race in Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire. But really, really impressive in the opening race of this ACER Malta GT3 Championship. Massively impressive.
It is so impressive the way that we have seen the front of this field battled with Galea there. Alexander Galea having a really strong run in fourth position. He's not really done anything too untoward. He's run well within his pace, and he's just kept the car on the island, and he's not really stepped out of line. He's just done what he's needed to in order to build his gap then to Samuel Mifsud in fifth, who's had to battle here today, and those around who have maybe had a few more struggles by comparison. But they will head over towards the start of the final lap of this race in just a moment's time with this driver, car number 93, Adrian Manduka, who leads this field right now by the tune of 3.8 seconds. He had to try and overturn a deficit of 4.5 seconds when Sheldon Muscat jumped out of the pit. I wonder whether Sheldon tried to underfuel that car, and as such has had to be mindful on where he applies the power down by comparison to Adrian Manduka. That 93 machine has been full bore over the course of this stint, taking chunks out of the Bentley, making the pass, and then jumping away once again. There is simply put been no way to underestimate what he does, with a little slide as he went through at the Klein chicane, up and over the Sacrament Schelling and in through the Butte corner, now at the Villeneuve chicane, leading to Lehman, which is one of the few corners on the circuit you have to be very patient through around this Zolder track. You know that you need to start a season with a little bit of gusto, with a little bit of might, with a statement to be named at the Boulderberg hairpin at Jochen and now driving over towards Jackie Ickx for the final time here in this race. Adrian Manduka has said that he will, on top of anybody else, be the yardstick that people will have to battle against. He was simply sublime today. Adrian Manduka has mastered Zolder.
Absolutely brilliant. You've hit the nail on the head there, Jay. A brilliant performance there from the Ferrari of Manduka. We thought that there was a little bit of a mess up in the strategy, but it all came through in the end. Big kudos there to Muscat and De Baptiste in the 94 and the 95. In fact, we've had 93, 94 and 95 all in a row. Ferrari, Bentley, McLaren, the top three. Unbelievable stuff there. And there is Muscat side by side. The two competitors go in a mark of respect. And that is some brilliant drivers showing some class driving between those two. But overall, it's been an absolutely amazing debut to the ACER Malta GT3 Championship, and you just cannot wait for more.
Oh, you absolutely can't wait. This has been a wonderful, wonderful bit of racing there between Manduka and Muscat, and I'm sure that De Baptista and Ryan Karabot, for example, will want to try and battle a little bit stronger over, of course, at the second round of the championship. That much we can certainly say for certain they want to try and really get that sorted. But confirmation then of your result, Adrian Manduka will take the result that he so desperately wants, knowing that he has got that margin by over 3.7 over Sheldon Muscat, with Aaron Debatista in third and Alexander Galea in fourth position. It was then Samuel Mifsud who rounds out the top five with James Smith, and then the second of the Agiuses back in seventh position. You then got Denzel Agius in eighth, you got Martinelli ninth, Mikolev in 10th, followed by Ryan Karabot, and of course Gat, they're down there in 12th position, 15 laps down, and not getting the finish here today after a couple of troubles. But Adam, it's worth talking about next time out there, because we've got Silverstone on the horizon, which is a much different challenge to what Zolder offers. It's a lot more expansive, it's a lot more about top speed, and we'll see a lot, maybe more, in terms of overtaking prowess.
Yep, there's so many overtaking opportunities around Silverstone. You really look at that circuit, you think about the wideness of the circuit, so much bigger than Zolder. So many more opportunities. It'll feel like, well, I was going to say an airfield, but of course it used to be an old airfield back in the 1940s. But Silverstone, I think, just for me personally, of course, we're both British, but there is something different about going to Silverstone, just knowing how iconic the circuit is and how much it kind of shines amongst the rest of the GT3 circuits we got on this calendar. But yeah, in terms of strategy, I think it'll pretty much be the same story. Of course, it will be up in the air until we get on the circuit, and I really do think that we have got a really big opportunity to see how incredible these drivers will be. And again, I hope we'll see maybe even 2 or even 3 cars up at the top of that, up at the top of the front end.
I hope so as well. This has been some wonderful racing here. Your ACER Malta GT3 Championship has been brought to you by GamingMalta, and in partnership with Hyundai, with Intercomp, with Sunshine Snacks, with Level Academy, and with JACAP. This has been a Velocity Esports Racing production from Adam Reed and myself, Jake Sperry. What more can you say? Sheldon Muscat is definitely no slouch when it comes to the Maltese sim racing community. He is one of the best when it comes to GT in the world. But when he has to stand up, Adrian Manduka on any given day can prove that he's got pace. And the Master has found exactly what he wanted here at Zolder. He is top of the tree as they head towards round 2. A simply scintillating drive in the second half of the race. And he'll be looking to build on more of that as we see you in 1 week's time.